This program is brought to you by the Kentucky Small Business Development Center in Louisville. We provide the professional expertise, tools, and information necessary to help you make sound business decisions. Thank you to the U.S. Small Business Administration for co-sponsoring our program and to our host organization, the University of Kentucky. Contact us at 502-625-0123 to get started.
So welcome everybody to the Kentucky Small Business Development Center's Toolkit Tuesday. And what we like to do here, Louisville, is kind of bring you some tools and tricks and things that you can use right away in your business. And one of the most important things in your business is business research. And I just want to let you know, I'm Dave Etkin. I'm the Center Director here in Louisville. And joining me is Janet, who's on our team, and then also Katherine Skaggs, who is the Business Resource Librarian at the Louisville Free Public Library. And the Free Public Library, the resources are probably the best, and the word free, I would stress, business research resources that you can get. And so I'm going to introduce Katherine. Katherine, you just kind of want to take it away and let us know what's available at the library and what we can do to access it.
Yes, please. Thank you. So this is all about business reference at the Louisville Free Public Library. So these are all of the resources that you have available for yourself for research for your business. We actually have their own special portal on our website, and I'm going to walk you through them all so that you know what they are and what they're used for in case you need to do research for yourself. This, of course, starts with me. I'm the Small Business Resources Librarian at the Louisville Free Public Library. And what a librarian is we are specialists in finding and organizing information. I actually have a master's degree in that, and in the state of Kentucky, librarians generally do. So it's actually an accredited position. This is our thing, is finding and organizing information. And with your library card, you have access to a specialized business research librarian of your very own, in a sense, already paid for. So the first thing when you're doing research for yourself that you really need to think about is, what are your overall goals? Come up with a plan and think, with your goals in mind, what do you really want to do, period? And then choose your research goals that fit that. For example, for a business plan or something along those lines, who are my competitors? What do I need to really think about? Or if you're thinking business to business sales, where are all of the businesses that I might be able to sell to? That kind of thing would be a research goal. And then using that information, you can think which resources to use to find that. And of course, I can help you out, so don't hesitate to get in touch with me. And you can do all of this with your library card. Right now, you can, if you're not sure if you have a library card or if you need to get a library card, if you go on our website, lfpl.org, you'll be able to see one of the links actually is about getting your own library card, or you can call 574-1611 right now. That number gets you in touch with reference staff at the library, either librarians or research assistants. And all of these people will be able to walk you through how to get a library card right now. Because things are kind of crazy, and we actually have a way to do that without even coming into the library. So go ahead, please call us 574-1611 in case you need it. So these are the resources that we actually have. So one of these categories is news. And so, for example, there's Louisville Business First, which is a local source of specifically business news. There's also national, financial news like the Wall Street Journal. There's national news in general like the New York Times, and there's local newspapers like the Courier Journal. You can use these things to kind of stay up on what are the business developments that you need to keep an eye on. It would be very useful for finding things like new sources of financing might open up, what's going on in terms of business grants, or if things keep closing, like you keep noticing closings of particular things, like it will actually announce, for example, in Louisville Business First that such and such a business is closing. Maybe it'll have a special on it. So it's very good to kind of keep your fingers on the pulse of what's going on, and we can help keep you up with that. Also, here are some great resources for starting up. Louisville Forward, as always, Kentucky One Stop is a portal for like establishing a business in Kentucky. Like if you want to start a business in Kentucky, it is a place to go to kind of start everything. There's SCORE, of course, and the Small Business Reference Center under EBSCO, which we have on our website. And what that is that is actually a collection of resources such as forms for like making a business plan, for example. It actually has like forms and worksheets and stuff like that that are really useful just kind of to have a toolkit so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So there's all kinds of kind of useful goodies that you can find. So one of the things you'll be thinking about is demographics and statistics, which sounds pretty boring, but is actually probably the most useful thing I'm going to tell you about today. One of these is the census.gov main portal to all of the census information, period. And what it can do is this gives you an idea, say how many people live in the area, where do they live, how much money do they make, what's their education level. Like it's an enormous amount of data, and that is how you get to it. Sorting it might be something else because it's very good with its kind of basic information, but you might need some help with the more finely grained stuff, but you can actually get very finely grained indeed. And it's definitely worth thinking about in terms of people. This business reference solutions, which you can find on our website, and I'll show you where the website is, and I'll actually walk you through what that looks like so that you can try it yourself. That is probably the most useful thing I have when people come to me with business questions, because what that is, business reference solutions, is it's literally a database of all of the registered businesses in the United States, which is pretty important. That is where you use, for example, that's what you use to pool who are my competitors, who do I sell to if I think business to business sales, what are the other businesses and how are they doing, and you can actually check that with that website. It's extremely useful and it has an enormous amount of information. Kind of squirrely to use, but I'm actually going to walk you through it as an example later. There's also education. So if you think, oh, I need to learn something, maybe there's something more I need to find out, we actually have all kinds of research resources for that. So there's Lynda, which is findable on our website as well. They have what are called learning paths, which are like small seminars of a series of web videos, and you can use those. One of them is Become a Small Business Owner. And I've watched all of the videos to be sure they're any good. It's about 12 hours worth of content actually toward that. And it's all very useful stuff. Would recommend it. It exists. There's also the Learning Express library. That is actually very good for things such as studying for standardized tests. So if there's a standardized test you need to take for things such as certifications or whatever else, like that is a great place to go. It has things like sample tests, how to study for things, all kinds of resources that you might find very useful for kind of buffing up your knowledge base and your skills. Miscellaneous databases. So here's some other stuff that we do have that don't necessarily fit into the other categories. In the library, you also have access to the Jefferson County PVA, the Property Evaluators website. And that gives you an idea of each of the properties, what they last sold for, who owns them, all over the county, and the tax assessed value, things like that. It's also very, very useful, especially if you're looking into purchasing real estate. Maybe you need a location for your business. You can see kind of what's going on and get a lay of the land for all of the properties if you want. There's also the Gale legal forms database. That is an enormous database of sample legal forms for all kinds of things, like all the things. And I believe our portal actually takes you directly to Kentucky because there's all kinds of very weirdly specific things. Although our staff can't give you legal advice, you're definitely welcome to kind of scrounge around on that site and see what they have, which is an absolutely formidable amount of like forms in general. There's also Business Source Premier. What that is it's a database of no matter how weirdly specific your business is, there is probably an industry journal specifically for that, or at least articles about that topic. So you would be able to have with Business Source Premier, it's a database that includes all of these journals, all of these industry magazines, the circulars, things like that. And you can use Business Source Premier to search them and find what you're looking for. So let's say, for example, you wanted to be a freelance sneakerhead. You could actually use Business Source Premier, search for shoes, find out information about the shoe industry, athletic shoes, collector athletic shoes. There's all kinds of information that can be gotten out of these specialty magazines. And also things like financing, such as the Community Ventures, Kiva, Access Ventures, the Kentucky Small Business Development Center, and the SBA. All of these things are useful things that you have access to. And investing. So there are 3 other things that are actually on our website. One of them is Weis Financial Ratings, Morningstar, and Value Line. The Weis Financial Ratings, these are all 3 databases of like banks. In the case of Weis Financial Ratings, it's banks, anything that can give you a loan, basically. So banks and credit union type things, stuff you can invest money in and possibly get money back out of. And that actually will give you ratings and information about specific sources. Morningstar and Value Line are also useful to an extent in that they also cover investing type things, but they're more aimed toward mutual funds and stocks and things like that. So once you've made your money, what do you do with your money and how do you keep your money? The website also has information to help you figure that out, because the more information you can get, the better for you. And especially if you have an efficient way to sort through them, which is what the library gives you. So that was a really brisk overview of the sources that exist. And in the meantime, I'm going to run you through how to actually do some of the research. So if you'll hold on, I'll let anybody who needs to ask a question go ahead and ask questions if I need to clear something up. And then I'm going to stop a screen share of this presentation and actually show you how to use one of the databases. Any questions?
Not at the moment right now, Catherine. Let's just kind of go on here.
Alrighty, then in that case, let's launch the internet. So what you would do is you would start, and I'll show you where all of this is. Here is the Google. If you go to our website, which is lfpl.org, which stands for the Louisville Free Public Library.org, and I'm going to check back and see what's going on in the chat.
Catherine, we're not seeing your screen. You might want to hit the clear button there.
Alrighty, cool. Let me share that. Okay, so this, hopefully it goes through. Okay, is the Louisville Free Public Library.org website. It's at lfpl.org up here. And that is our website. It's actually printed on your library card, I think. And it stands for Louisville Free Public Library. And what you're going to do is you're going to go down here under Research Tools. And under Research Tools, there's an entire category for business and money. So if you click on that, these are all of those links that I was telling you about that you get access to with your library card. As you can see, there are quite a few of them. It's really quite nice. But what we're going to do is we're going to go right up here to Business Reference Solutions. We're going to let it load because it takes a bit. What it would do, so I'm sitting in the library. If you weren't in the library and you were off-site, you would do, it would stop you and say, hey, what's your library card number and password? That's all at once. And once it gets your library card number and password, it'll let you in to research and look at all the database goodies that it has. We're going to totally ignore all of this and we're going to skip straight to advanced search. I'm going to let that load. So this looks really intimidating. I'm sorry. And I'll show you how to go through it. But the important thing you need to think about is over here, if you can see it, where it says record counts. That tells you how many businesses are in the database. And this works by filtering out the ones you don't want or applying filters to see the ones that you do want. So imagine it like, you know, here's 15 million businesses. You want only the ones in Louisville, Kentucky. You want only the ones that are cafes in Louisville, Kentucky. You want only the cafes in Louisville, Kentucky with less than 10 employees. This narrows down the search. So the more specific you can be about exactly what businesses you're looking for, and therefore the more specific you can be about who you are selling to and what your target is, the more clear you can get, the better off you will be trying to find information. And I always tell people, because sometimes I ask, and I say, well, who do you think are your market? Like, who is your market? Who are you selling to? Who are you targeting with your idea? And a lot of times people say everybody. And is you sure you'd like everybody to buy it, but you'd also have to ask yourself, everybody, or would I be wasting energy trying to chase everybody when I could find people who are specifically interested in what I have, and more efficiently get them the information that they need? So that, I think, is very important to keep in mind, because it doesn't hurt you to narrow down your market. In fact, it helps you, because it helps you more efficiently target it to people that would be more likely to buy it. So over here, we're going to look at this. So the question is, how do we start narrowing this number down? And what we're actually going to do so this is the NAICS database. And what this is it's a serial number. It's like a number that is used to reference specific industries or specific topics. Every single type of business has a code that this is used for. So that's kind of why librarians exist, is that we have such a high volume of information that's available now that basically you actually have databases that feed information to be used in other databases. And that's what we're doing. So what you can do, for example, is you can use this. And you can say, I want to know what you've got that are NAICS codes related to shoe sales. And as you can see, it actually turns up quite a heck of a lot. Footwear manufacturing, personal services like clothing and merchant wholesalers, because they might sell shoes. So you can look at this and think which things would be closest to sort of what you're looking for. So footwear merchant wholesalers, like, it actually gives you information, which I think is fantastic, because then you can kind of look at this and say, well, how do we want this? How do we want this to kind of go down? And of course, you're going to have to think, because if you're thinking shoe store or shoe repair store, like that kind of thing, you don't mean brake shoes. You don't necessarily mean like for the railroad or something. Like, you're going to have to sort through it yourself, because what it's looking for is a keyword. So that kind of thing, if you were thinking like, all right, we can sort of work with this, you can then say like, okay, suppose we're wholesaling like just a boatload or a lot of them. You can actually say like, all right, what kind? And then it'll break it down. So it looks like the number we're looking for is 424,340. And so that actually gives you something that you can use here. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to go over here, ignore this because this gets a little dodgy because it wants it exact. This is a very squirrely site in that sense. But over here where it says business type, you can say a keyword. And I would suggest doing that because major industry group, it can be kind of hard to find things. So we're going to start with that. And when you click on one of these things over here, you're actually selecting what filter to apply. So now we've got this keyword NAICS filter. We're going to say, I want that one. And it's going to say like, well, here you go. And then you get to choose kind of what you're looking for. So here we're going to be like, all right, we want the actual shoes wholesale. And then we're going to say, all right, where is this? And what you can do, so anytime you do this, you can see, well, how far did that narrow it down from 15 million businesses in the United States we can update the count and see that we've actually, like, there are only 968 only shoe wholesalers in the United States. Then we can come down here because we added city, state. We're going to come down here and we're going to go to Kentucky. And it's weirdly specific. It wants you to click on the actual arrow. Otherwise, it'll add it to the field. So you're going to say, I want only Louisville, Kentucky. Oh, there it was. And the one that you want will be right there. And we're going to say, well, let's update that. Well, there's 2 of those. And then we're going to say, well, you know, that's great. That's manageable. Let's see who they are. And then you click view results. It'll say, well, here's your shoe carnivals. And that's what we've got. There's specifically shoe wholesalers in Kentucky. And you'll be able to actually see that. You can also, so you can see that what it gives you. And well, I'll show you another way to narrow it down too. But this will at least give you an idea of what this is capable of. When you click on one of these, you will open the information for that business. And it will tell you, like, you know, here's their location, here's their phone number, here's the census block it's in case you wanted to use this in tandem with the census. You can say, like, what's within it. You know, you can also say, here's all of its industry profiles that it's actually keeping itself in. And here's another useful NAICS code that you can use, for example. And all of the things. So your business, you might find there's more than one. You might find that what you look for doesn't quite match up to what you're looking for. So for example, all of this, it'll give you location, information, like this is a branch, like what type is it? It's a branch of a public company. It'll even give you a sales volume estimate, which is pretty nice. The square footage and all of this, like, it's absolutely lovely, and how long it's been there. So for example, years in database, like, it will tell you how long it's been in the database, which is actually great, because that also can tell you how stable is this type of business, for example. And it also sometimes gives you a bit management directory. It'll give you, like, all kinds of luscious, wonderful information. And you can check sales volume by year, which is amazing. So you have the ability to really keep an eye on how these things actually work. So you can look at all of this and see, how has this been doing? It'll give you all kinds of information, and that's just within that thing. I'm going to show you other things. So it's like, here are other things that probably compete with it. So you can do a substantial amount of scouting, but we're also going to go back to this list because I want to show you something else. When you select your businesses that you want to see, you can also see a heat map of where they are. And it will take a second to populate, but yeah, it'll be like, there's one here and one here. So that doesn't just go for businesses in the same thing, that actually goes for everything. And we can back all the way back up and say, like, well, what if we want this? Well, what if we want this broader? And we actually want more than that. Suppose we actually want yeah, so there's 92 regular, just it's a shoe store. Here are all the shoe stores in Louisville, Kentucky that fit that. And then what you do, so we can, there's 4 pages worth of this. It will go up to 200 counts that it will let you deal with. So 92 is in fact great. And we could, I'll show you what filtering it down further would look like if you need to with this. But now we can say heat map. I want to see what that is. It thinks about it. There, and you can see where all of the shoe stores are and where they're located. They tend to clump up along major arteries. There's like a whole smattering of them here in Okolona. And of course, this is counting. So look over here and it'll say it's also counting like Kohl's and JCPenney's and stuff. So that's something to keep in mind, is that if you wanted to narrow it down further, you'd have to think, okay, suppose I don't think I'm going up against Kohl's. You can ask yourself, well, how do I continue to kind of narrow this down? You can say, well, we've got things that sell shoes in Louisville, Kentucky, and there's 92 of them. But we can also say, if I'm a small shoe store starting out, we could go number of employees, less than 10. And like, let's update that count. And there's like 51 of them. And you can say, okay, well, I want to say whether it's a public or a private company, or if it's a headquarter or a branch, you can also kind of use that. And you can say, I want single location and headquarters only. And that'll be the independent shoe stores in Louisville, Kentucky. Or if we've got, some massive company here. So you see here, we've now brought it down to just 22. And here they are. All the small shoe stores in Kentucky that are independent, in Louisville. So that's how you do it. And that's how you take something and narrow it down, and why thinking very specifically about what you're looking for actually really helps you. Because you do ask yourself, am I actually going up, like, is Kohl's actually my competitor? Or is it some of this other stuff that's going on? And by thinking, like taking that step and kind of thinking strategically, and that's also if you contact me, and please do contact me if you need me to look stuff up, because I know that this particular database, like I will gladly help you and do this for you too. But when you do email me, tell me as much information as you can about exactly what kind of business you're thinking of starting, who you're thinking of selling to, what you think, that kind of thing, as specific as you can get. Because if you do, it'll be much easier to actually narrow down what this is. And it'll also help your thinking out, because I find that sometimes I sort of get in the weeds thinking about stuff if I have a project, and then actually trying to find out more information about it. It's like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Maybe I'll have to stop for a second and think about that. So here we go back, and that's what it does. And we can see, let's see where they all are. And again, for all of these, you will get as much information as they have in the database about where they are. And you'll be able, so one of the things you can do is over here, under print. So back in the heat map here, we'll go back for a second. So over here, you actually have the option to save yourself. Yeah, you could either print it right away, or you could actually download a version of that file. Like, you can actually download a version of that file. It'll save it as a JPEG. It'll actually tell you, and it'll also tell you where it is by zip code. So there seem to be a lot of them in 40207 and 40219, for example. 42220, yeah, that's a fair little clutch of them. So that gives you something you can use. And also the other thing that it can do is, in addition to generating that for you, when you do that, you also have the option of downloading these charts. And you can download it, comma delimited. It will actually give you a spreadsheet based on that. You can also just download yourself an Excel spreadsheet, and it will have at least all of this basic information. You can tell it how much of what kind of information to give you. But at least the basics, so that you can contact people. Like, say you're manufacturing shoes, like you're making shoes, and you want to know who you can sell it to. Having suddenly, like, here's a list of 22 small shoe sellers in Louisville, Kentucky, that you might be able to sell your shoes to if you're a cobbler. So there's your list of people to call right away, or people to contact. It's like instantly there. And also each one of these, again, like always, all of these you can click on and get information. And it's like, here you go, here's the phone number, here's where it is. Here's all the things that it's actually under. And it'll tell you, like, it's a private type business, there's only 2 people, here's how it's doing. Last time it updated, which is nice because it tells you how fresh this information is, which I think is really nice, especially because so much has changed with the COVID-19 pandemic and everything going on. It is really, really important that you're looking at very recent data, because nobody really knows how this is going to shake down. And I don't think we've got the ability to predict the future from the way things went in the past. It's just not that stable. So you want your information fresh. You want your information accurate, and these kinds of databases are an excellent way to go through them and kind of see what is available for you. One of the things I do as a librarian is I weed information by figuring out, for example, say there's a bunch of nonfiction books. One of the things I do think about is this information, at what point does out-of-date information become worse than no information at all? So for example, medical books go out of date really fast. And so a medical book that's 5 years old probably isn't any good anymore. And you're going to want to see if there's something more recent and better and fresher that's available. Think of it kind of like food. Some of this stuff does expire. And you've got to think what's going on that I might have to use to really make this work. So that's something. And I'm also going to show you just kind of real quick what some of these other things do if you were to get in here and mess with them. So this Business Source Premier, that's the one with the industry journals. I'm going to click on it. And we're going to kind of muck around and see what it does. So this is the database of industry journals and magazines. And for example, because the other way you can do this, so it'll spit up a bunch of stuff. So that's interesting. Publishers Weekly. It'll tell you what's going on. Like, so here's how many pairs of shoes, too many pairs of shoes. Now that's interesting. Subjects, footwear merchant wholesalers, footwear merchant wholesalers, shoe stores, shoes, like those are actual tags that you can use within this database to even find. And that was November 2020. So if, for example, we click on this, it will give you all the information like here's this thing and it exists. In this case, what this tells you is what do you have access to with our database? It will actually give you the PDF for this entire thing. And it'll also sometimes tell you when you don't have access to the entire thing. So hopefully, come on, little guy. You can do it. So in this case, we have access to the full text. There may be an instance where there isn't the subscription to it. And we have to ask ourselves, okay, so at what point, do you actually say, I have the complete information to cite this? Because they'll have all of the information. It'll say detailed record. It'll have all the information to cite this. And you'll have to ask, okay, well, subject, but you'll be able to look and say, all right, here's the citation information. Maybe U of L Business Library will be able to help you out and get a more specific, like, here's your full text for something. So this is actually very useful. It'll give you all kinds of really good information. So there is actually, and also notice you just scroll down a little bit and explore, and you'll see that there is, in fact, a footwear news that is dedicated to actually the shoe industry. So if you were really, really into it, you could read the articles with your library card, or you might actually consider a subscription yourself eventually if you're really that into it, which if you're doing it for a job, I hope you are really that into it. So as you can see here, here's the complete record. And also here's where you found it, which is nice. So it'll be like, here's all about Nike Dunk. And then you can say, so where it says detailed record, if you click on this, suppose we didn't have access to it. This information right here, in the abstract, if you were to just print this page and be like, hi, help me, and you were to say, I couldn't get the full text from the Louisville Free Public Library or whatever library you're using, an academic library, say at a college that has a business program that's likely to subscribe to this kind of thing, that's their thing. So you could just print this page because this has all the information you need, title, author, where the source is, and exactly what issue, what page, and then here, this is the important thing, the ISSN. So it will actually tell you all the information that you need or a librarian needs to find that exact article for you if they do have access to it. So if this were not the kind of thing that you could click on and actually get the full text of, you could get that citation information and take it to a library that does have access to the full text and can get that for you. So that's how important this is too, is that this can give you access to it too. And librarians, no matter if they're public librarians like me, or they're academic librarians like at a college or something, they love to answer reference questions. So don't you hesitate. You're not bothering us. This is our job and we love it. Don't you worry about going to a librarian about stuff. It's absolutely going to thrill them. And we love hunting down information for people. So that's what this database does. And this was Business Source Premier. It's an EBSCO database. You'll probably see them pop up multiple times in here. So EBSCO, that was Business Source Premier. We were just looking at the database of businesses, the business reference solutions. And we'll also kind of drop in on Business First of Louisville just to see what's up. Let it load. All right. So all of these, if you were offsite, would gate you and say like, hey, you know, put in your library card number and password and ask you to sign in, but you should be able to use them just fine offsite. So you see right off the bat, like here we are at Louisville Business First. And it'll say like, here's what's going on in Louisville businesses. So because it's specifically Louisville businesses, this cuts down on a lot of stuff that's not local. It cuts down on a lot of stuff that maybe doesn't have direct bearing on what's going on here. But this kind of thing, 2.9 million vehicles because of airbag stuff, that's kind of a big deal. And we'll pay attention to that. Or Black-owned Louisville real estate firms. There's a giant merger going on. There's all kinds of stuff happening right now that would be important. Like, let's say, like, look at this. You know, if you have a nonprofit or something, there's going to be a fundraising school like this. You know, if you want financing, if you want information about what's going on, like if you want to just keep up on what's happening locally in business, this is a great resource. And it's available with your library card. It's pretty great. So this kind of thing is definitely what's available, and they report on all kinds of stuff that's local. You just kind of go through it. You can also search it. And they also publish what's known as the Book of Lists, which we'll get into in just a second. So first of all, it has local business news. That's great. It also has, if we scroll way up, it'll say lists. And what the Book of Lists is all of the things. It's literally just lists of various kinds of businesses. So all of these kinds of things, it will tell you. And if you click on the Book of Lists, we'll give it a second to load. Come on, okay. There we go. Okay. So note that it actually paywalls you because this is the juicy stuff. Here's the thing. There are a couple of, it's considered a reference book at the libraries. There are specific branches. Shawnee, where I'm based out of, is one of them that actually has this printed book. I think we got ours, they released the recent one just like a couple months ago. It's usually yearly. So I don't, like right now, it's just kind of, oh guys, this is a precarious position because I don't know how good the data is going to be compared to other years. But we're hanging in there. But you would normally have to cough up money for it, but you could go to the library and research this on your own. Sometimes you're just going to have to come into a library, and that's one of those things, unfortunately. Oh, hey, your thing just dropped. Look at that. New restaurant. So of course this opens up, oh, maybe this is a source. Like if people are kind of watching this, maybe this is a source you need to consider, like if you need to make a press release or something, because there are people paying attention to stuff. So this gives you a ton of information that you might be able to really make use of. And that's just the first three things. So one of the things I am going to do is I'm going to look down here. So there's a Courier Journal, and this is different than the Courier Journal's website. And this will go for, so I'm going to show you this resource, but this goes for all of the other things that I mentioned that were newspapers specifically. So yeah, we're going to give it a second. There you go. Okay. So notice that it says basic search, advanced search, browse issues, and change databases. This allows you to go between the different newspapers. But everything that this is, note this says 2008 to recent with a 3-month embargo. So the most recent 3 months won't be in this database, but the older ones will, back to 2008. If you want the stuff before 2008, you would go to their historical site, which I'll show you in a second, because it is actually different. So this stuff, and I think there's still a gap between the historical, like a brief gap between the historical and the 2008 to recent version. Unfortunately, that the stuff that's covered in the gap, it does exist. You can get it through the library, but it is on microfilm at the main library, and you'll probably have to go or call down there and say, hey guys, what if I want this article that probably ran, or see if, Courier Journal reported on such and such during the gap. They'd probably have to be like, yeah, we'll help you out. We'll figure out which microfilm thing it's in. That can be a pain in the buns, but it's kind of cool because you sort of feel like a detective, because this might be stuff that, nobody's seen before. It's pretty cool. So you can search it and it'll look for, it will look for all kinds of things. And it's just, did this run in the Courier Journal? And you can say, like, here's stuff going on that mentioned that thing. So as you can see, it just lists, like, here's the stuff that all mentions that. And it's just a really basic, like, word, keyword type search. So don't expect it to be smart necessarily. It'll just be like, here's those words that you wanted next to each other. So you do have the ability to actually look, give it a second. Give it a second. There we go. So you can actually see, like, you can look at back issues, and this will give you ideas of, like, okay, previous business conditions, where are we going with that? And that goes for any of these ProQuest newspaper things. So Courier Journal, their ProQuest, New York Times Historical, which I'm going to get into in a second. So those are actually, Wall Street Journal ProQuest. So you actually have back issues of the Wall Street Journal if you wanted to. They're there. Don't worry about it. They're there. So here's the historical version, and you can switch. So we're going to go. Suppose we wanted to actually go have a look at what's going on. So 2008. So you can actually search back issues, and that's what this gives you. So this historical database, it is actually a separate database than the other one, and you would have to switch to tell it which one you wanted. So here we are, and again, we're looking at back issues of the New York Times, and you can switch to whatever you like, which is pretty nice. And you can also tell it, so it can say, like, when do you want it actually, and you can say custom date range, and you can tell it, when do you want this from, what type of thing do you want it about, and that actually is pretty useful. So here's the property search. You can use that to look up, so for example, giving that a second, you can do it. And this will work. I know it works within the library. You can always try it off library, off site. But I wouldn't 100% trust it to go through like it should off site, but it should work. Come on, little guy. Okay. So for example, here's where you find me, guys, if you needed to, when I can finally meet with people. That's us, 3912 West Broadway. And there's, of course, like whichever library branch, like if you, I don't know, walk into Southwest Regional or just like, hey, I need a something business question, they'll still be like, oh yeah, like, email Katherine. And I'll chat the email when I get back to using Zoom. So here we are. And here we can just say, oh, stop it. Definitely don't do that. All right. Shoop. You'll think about it for a bit. And it's just like, oh yeah, this is the Louisville Free Public Library. There's a thing on it. There's stuff's been improved. It'll tell you everything that it can about that specific property. There's going to be some weirdness because you're looking at a library branch, but you'll notice that it will tell you like, okay, who is technically the owner, like what property class is this, what's it assessed value, where is it, how much space is it, like fire district, so that's nice. So it'll actually give you a surprising amount of information, including this little, like actually giving you where little, there it is. And that's also where the actual property lines are. So this is way better than Google Maps in a sense, in that it will actually give that to you. So this is how you would look up. So say you were like, oh, I need to scout a particular neighborhood where I'm considering buying property. This is how you would go about that if you wanted to. Like I said, I know for sure you can do that within the library, and it might just ask you for your library card outside it. Any questions?
Yeah. So I'm sure you get this question a lot, and it's a big question, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it. So if I was thinking, if I called you up and I said, hey, Katherine, I'm thinking about opening a coffee shop somewhere in Louisville, and what would you recommend I would do for research to put my business plan together? What would be those steps that you would tell me?
To put your business plan together, the first thing I would ask is, what kind of coffee shop is it? Do you want to sell food too? Like, be very, very specific about what kind of business you're really thinking of. Like, what is this exactly? And you might get into research and then change your mind and then think, okay, so if I really want to do coffee shop, this specific kind of coffee shop, I would ask myself, the next thing I need to think about, especially for a business plan, is who are my competitors? Because I'm selling to the public, I'm not necessarily thinking business to business sales, unless you were, and you might be thinking catering. But the first thing I would ask is, who are my competitors? Where are the other coffee shops? Why are the other coffee shops? And how are they doing? And you would do that with this business reference solutions like we did before, which is why it's the very first thing I showed you. Because like I tell people all the time, the whole point of a business plan, like, it's for you as a tool. It's a tool for you in the sense that it helps you clarify your thinking, and it gives you literally a plan. But it is also for you to say, walk into a bank or something and say, if I need a loan, here is my legit plan for making money so I can pay you back. And people are going to want to know that. People are going to want to know, have you thought about who your actual competitors are? Have you thought about, like, concretely, is and how is this going to make money? And I think that this is why this is my favorite database, despite it being kind of squirrely to deal with. Like, it's a lot. Like, I'm sorry, but there's 15 million businesses in there and all of these filters. But that's what you're doing. You're just filtering them through. So you're just going to sift them by category and use that NAICS lookup if you need to, but you can also do major industry group. And that is precisely what I would do. Is my first thing would be, let's get in there, eating and drinking places. Well, that wouldn't quite be what I'm looking for. And that's why I prefer the NAICS lookup, is that it's just like, well, how is it trying to classify this? I guess they mean that. Oh yeah, that's much better. So you'll be like, okay, is this, like, what sort of thing is this? And this does a better job, I guess, of actually helping you. But that's why I always use the NAICS lookup. And like I said, NAICS, they have their own website because they're a thing that actually, yeah, and you can just look it up. And that's why that's like the very first thing I would do if I were starting a coffee shop, is I would ask, yeah, and notice that this immediately comes to you. Okay, so do you mean manufacturing it? Do you mean like actually selling it? Like, what is this actually? And that's also why it helps you to go through the business plan thing, is that this helps you very clearly clarify what exactly you're doing. And that's the other really important thing about it. And that's why it's the very first thing I would do. Scout the competition, see what your actual plan is, that kind of thing. Did that answer the question okay?
Yeah, very, very well, very well. Thank you.
Good.
So let's just say that I do have a business and I sell something. What you looked at, we saw a little bit about it on the business reference solutions, but what other data could we get out of that we could build a good detailed customer list out of?
So if you're, so I would use business reference solutions. So business reference solutions, because it's a database of companies, it is going to be great for generating lists of potential customers for business to business sales. That's really its best, like that's its forte, is it'll give you a list of businesses. It's just up to you to decide how you want to filter it. So let's say you're a coffee shop and your whole idea is, I'm going to sell coffee to businesses that maybe need coffee in the break room, or maybe need like, hey, there's going to be meetings and people are going to want coffee at the meetings, right? That's what this is for. So you can get back in here and say like, okay, so I'm selling the coffee. Who would need the coffee that I would be selling? And be like, well, I've been in mechanics places and they always have coffee in their like break room thing where you have to sit around for a while. Maybe I should look up, like car repair. Maybe I should look up, all kinds of places like tech stores. Like they have people who always sit around having to drink lots of coffee. So computer repair, any tech stuff, programming, like you would start thinking, who do I sell coffee to? Who's going to want that coffee? And then you can actually use this database to filter for those people.
Gotcha. So someone to contact, is it just kind of limited to what we see here on the executives, or could you get like HR department or?
Yeah, so what it'll do, it will actually sometimes give you just that companies, I would muck around on their website, it would give you just a general contact number. So suppose we actually did. So let's actually do that. So yeah, so office machine repair and maintenance. So that's nice to know. Software installation services, like all kinds of stuff. So I like that. We're gonna just take that. Let's get in here and say like, all right, we're just gonna do this by NAICS. And we're also gonna say city, state. There we go. All right. Come on. So yeah, that's what I would do. And this will give you business to business sales, and it will give you, most importantly, a contact number. It may not be the one, it's whichever one like is actually in their registration, because I think that's actually what they're pulling it from. So yeah, there we go. We'll just take that shortcut. Computery things, Louisville, Kentucky. Let's go, custom bytes. Sometimes, so here is that business's phone number, and it's just what they actually have registered in the database. You could actually look, so if it were a much larger company, one of the things it will sometimes have, let's get down there. Here we go. Okay, so one of the things it will actually sometimes have is a corporate tree. Let's go find one of those. Come on, little guy. There we go. Okay, so one of these where you actually see like, oh, well, here's a corporate tree. Like there's La Quinta Inn and Suites, and that's probably a perfectly great thing to get stuff from. So we're gonna have a look at their corporate tree. And then you'd be able to say like, okay, well, here's people that, come on, management directory. So it'll actually give you a management directory sometimes. Yeah, okay, so that's already expanded. Sometimes they have more information in there. Sometimes they don't. It's sort of up to the businesses. sort of how they decide to get it in the database if they need to. It'll actually tell you like, all right, these are all, yeah, it looks like a franchise operation. So yeah, it'll at least give you a contact number. You might have to call them and say like, hey, you know, who manages, you know, the acquisitions and stuff, but it'll at least give you an idea of what you're going on and it's somewhere to start with. Databases are great, but sometimes there's no substitute for actual shoes on concrete or calling people. You're still going to have to do some of that, but at least it'll give you a list of contacts or places to start. As for people, you're going to want to go to the census. So for example, I wanted to sell coffee to humans individually. It will tell you all of the information it possibly can. And then how many of them actually want coffee. So they also, I think they finished it. So they had a program on to migrate all of their information from their old portal to the new one. There's some things that are still maybe yet to shake down, but it'll give you like a ton of information just off the bat in general. But you can also say, explore data or browse by topic. It'll give you information. So we want to go. You can just give it stuff like that. They're still kind of banging out the issues. Unfortunately, come on guys, you can do it. I know you can. You did the other day. All right. Sometimes you just need to back up and then do other stuff. Yeah, employment profiles. So that's cool. What it does is it mostly serves up, what's it called? It mostly serves up like massive, let's see. It'll mostly serve up just huge, like, here's your database. And did they rearrange this since the last time I was there? Oh, okay. Come on. Experimental data product. They're still kind of working on some of this. But if you wanted information on actual people, how many people are in Louisville, Kentucky? Yeah, so they also have the NAICS code lookup. How many people are in Louisville, Kentucky? How does that actually work? You can. So let's just say, come on. Whew, okay, good. Yay. So you can, it's just sometimes really cumbersome because it's just such an absolutely monumental amount of information. And also bear in mind, unless you're looking for the specific census year, what you're seeing is not a count, it's an estimate. So I don't know how helpful that is, but it exists.
Let me ask you this other question.
Sure.
Shannon, she says, I know you can purchase customer lists, but is there a way to look that up yourself through the library? She owns a children's clothing boutique and would like to mail out postcards to families with newborn children up to age 7.
Okay. You can also, I would think for yourself, because I know increasingly few people, like here's the other catch. Data harvesting, right? Speaking of purchasing lists, two things that are kind of connected, like sort of fused, I guess, along one creepy side, is the question of data harvesting, and on the other hand, like information shyness, in a sense, because all of the things you interact with online. The rule of thumb that I always tell people is if you get a service for free on the internet, I don't care what it is, if you get a service for free on the internet, you are not the client, you are the product. And so for example, you know, the things that you watch, the things that you do, if you get stuff for free, for example, all of these social media sites that you do not pay money for, what they're doing is they're harvesting everything that you like. They're quietly keeping tabs on you. And they are able, with algorithms that process and crunch the numbers, to try to say, like, build a profile of who this person is and what they do. And that's why when you happen to like a, like say you liked a post about somebody's goldfish, that's why sometimes the next thing you see somewhere is it'll serve up an ad for fish food or something weird. And you're like, well, I just liked that fish video. And it's because it remembers, and all of these things talk to each other. And also people are kind of creeped out by that because there's all kinds of like terrifying existential questions, like, for example, generational names in the United States, like that's actually a marketing thing. And to what identity, like at what point is identity actually being determined by marketers? You start to ask yourselves all kinds of creepy, terrifying questions. Like at what point are actual marketing decisions or computers, they're generated mostly for marketing, at what point are they actually driving people's behavior rather than, you know, like who's driving this bus? And that's scary. So a lot of people have either, so these lists of people to contact, either it is, you know, I'd question the ethics and where the heck did it come from, part one, because of data harvesting, and part two, because of data harvesting, a lot of people are very, very cautious about getting their information in any way, shape, or form out there. And I feel kind of bad for future historians in the sense that, like, for example, my personal phone number is unlisted. I don't have a landline, like, you know, and I'm sure as heck, like, you're not getting my phone number, you know, like my actual cell phone number. It's not on white pages. And so the question is like, yeah, where is it coming from? And there are probably better ways to target people anyway, because sometimes if people pay to get on a customer list, like they're really taking the money for the sake of doing that. It's not necessarily because, I mean, if they already have one person selling them lip gloss, do they really need 50 other people selling them lip gloss? You're buying the list, but you're also buying into a ton of competition for the exact thing you're trying to sell. So that's something that I would be very worried about with an actual list like that too. You know, and I think it always kind of helps to ask another question, like, where did it come from? What are its effects? What does this like logically result in? It's much easier to find out these people who I want to sell things to, where are they? Like, where do they congregate in groups? Is there something they have in common that can be used to market to them or to reach them in a sense? So kids, small, you know, families with small children, are there any daycares that you might be able to talk to? Are there any like places near, yeah, are there anything that you can reach out to where there might be a concentration of people with the same kind of things that you're also looking to sell to that are not the exact same as your business? Yeah, so for example, if someone had an internet cafe, that's a great example of, I would also advertise computer repair services at said internet cafe, and coffee at said internet cafe, because these are probably people going to an internet cafe are probably also the kind of people interested in those same things. So that's more how I'd go about it.
So Benny, hey Benny, she wants to know, can she get a library card if she does not live in Jefferson County?
You can get a library card if you don't live in Jefferson County. You're also eligible for a free library card if you work in Jefferson County. So you actually, there's more than one path to a free library card, even if you don't live here. You can work here, you can go to school here. And even if you don't do any of those things, there is your local library. If your county has a library, which they probably do, they're probably great, and you could get a free library card with them. But there's also paid subscriptions to our library card, which are relatively inexpensive. I think it's like $20 per year or something crazy like that. And you would call us at 502-574-1611 to talk to reference staff, and they can help you.
Nice. Got one more question here. Kim
Sure.
would like to know if the Data Axle has information on nonprofit associations, and if it doesn't, is there a different reference for that?
They do. So they do have some of that, but there are other better resources for it. And I would also suggest going through, like, definitely talk to For example, Louisville Forward, because they'll be able to hook you up with all kinds of information about that also, because they're more plugged into the whole ecosystem, like as a whole. But in terms of specifically finding other nonprofits, rather than databases of grants, they'd probably be a great place to start for one. You can use Data Axle to find nonprofits. I just don't know if it's as reliable in the same sense. It's massive, but there's got to be some holes in there somewhere. And I'm wondering if maybe that's one of them.
Yeah.
Also, my job effectively got split in half, and I got the business half and somebody else got the nonprofit half. And I don't know if he's come back to work yet in all of this. So there is actually someone else out there who specifically handles nonprofit reference. In fact, I'm going to just try this real quick. Come and load. Yeah. So, okay. Here we have Louisville Grows. We'll see what their deal is. Come on. Company type, single location. Yeah, no idea. Weird. Is this even the same thing? So this is why I never search by actual title. Are they actually literally called that? So it's this that starts getting into some interesting places. Because it's like, okay, so here's the thing. They're a nonprofit. I know they're a nonprofit. Is this like literally and formally? So here's the problem with searching by title. Are they literally and formally, is that the actual name of the business on their actual business registration is the first thing. So my immediate guess is yes, they do have nonprofits. You might have to do some interesting figuring out. Let's see, what is competitors? Yeah. You might have to do some interesting times with the NAICS database to try to figure out what that is exactly. Yeah, here we go. Unclassified establishment. Yeah, that gets into weird space because like it's not really built for that, but it contains it. Is the issue with the database. Like it's not set up to really handle it, but it does have it in there. You'll probably have to do some fancy footwork with the database to just generate a list of only nonprofits, or you can pick through something in the specific area you're looking for, which is again, be as specific as you can. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of nonprofits and a lot of them do stuff. So very different from each other. Any other questions?
I think that's it. We're kind of at the end of our time. Katherine, I really want to thank you for this. This has been really eye-opening for me. I've used a lot of the stuff, but some of the little corners you took us to today, I hadn't been in either. So yeah, it was great.
Oh, thank you.
So hopefully we'll do this again soon. And I just want to stress to everybody, when you are researching a new business or you're researching how to grow your business, reach out to Katherine and she will help you. We'll also send you a recording of this and her slides and contact information a little bit later on today. So with that, Katherine, thank you again.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been fun.
And so everybody enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and we'll see you next time.